We don't want to start recording until I say good morning. Good morning to everyone here. Thank you for coming. This is the Prince George's County Education Subcommittee, and I am Susie Proctor, the chair of this committee. And we thank everyone who has found time to be in attendance this morning. I have a note from the sponsors of HB 50522. They have convened a state-county work group, and they will have, they're setting up several meetings to make sure that they've included input from everyone that is available to put input, to have input in this particular bill, to make sure that it's all inclusive. And they're going to be back on the agenda probably by mid-February. So I needed to make that announcement for them.
Coming tomorrow to meet us researching.
If everybody would put your,
Is remote.
everyone put it on mute unless you're speaking. Okay, so we only have one other bill, and that is 50322. We heard this last week. This bill is non-school use of public school facilities. I think there was at least one question, and I'm hoping that Ron is here, Ron Young, Prince George's County.
Hi, Delegate Proctor, I'm here. Yep.
Yeah, I think the only direct question that I remember was basically an explanation of the necessity for this bill. So if you could address that for us.
Yeah, and so the necessity behind this bill, and I've talked to a couple members of this committee since then. And so we're just looking at, after receiving complaints on both sides from our school system and then also parking planning, bringing those together for scheduling is just where we are seeing now, making sure that our constituents get the services they deserve, and that really there's some collaboration between both the school system, the county government, and then parking planning. And so also available to answer any questions presented by the delegates.
Yes, I have also had concerns expressed about, we have basically the girls and boys clubs not being able to get the fields they want when they want. They didn't feel like they had a equal opportunity, I guess. We've got a problem here somewhere. Is everybody on mute?
Delegate Proctor, if your staff person's on too close to you, it will make that echoing sound. Are you in the office?
I'm in the office.
Is he on?
Hallie, are you on?
Yes.
You might have to move further apart. That's what might create the.
Okay. Try to move to the desk next to the door if you can. Okay, well, thank you. Ron, are there any questions for Ron? Not hearing any.
I don't have any questions, but what I wanted to say is that we did talk to Ron about this, and Delegate Landis and I talked to Ron about it. And we were just hoping that as they're planning for this collaboration, that they're talking to the people who are maintaining the current system that already exists in the school system.
And I think that's one of the things you have referenced, Ron, that you have talked to people so that we're on the right path there. I see a hand up with Mrs. Terry Neutron.
Yes, good morning. I had submitted some concerns. Basically, we had not been able to discern the legislative intent based on the law or the proposed bill as written or explained by the testimony on December the 15th and December the 19th. So I had a few questions to put forth in order to try to gain an understanding. It appears that the after-school use of school facilities is governed by PG County Schools Procedure 1330, as I had stated earlier, and it seems it's administered by the Plant Operations and Building Services. And we found the use of a database, and we were wondering if this information is information available from this database, or did some data analytics indicate there was a problem with this process? Also, we had concerns that the school board or the school principals, which seem to be the ones that grant permission, were involved in the design for this legislation. And is this process applicable to P3 schools, non-P3 schools, charter schools? And does the planning board currently manage any school properties? I think if there are concerns with the existing procedures, perhaps that data could be shared, because granted, we've been out of the athletic part of the school use of fields, but I know athletic departments weren't usually considered non-school use. The same thing, like I recently, well, a couple of years ago, attended a drama club play at Northridge. Are we talking about those kind of uses? It just doesn't seem clear why the planning board and Maryland National Capital Park and Planning would have to centralize this if you already have a database, and that the principals were, largely involved in granting this. Most of the concerns that I heard in listening to a few board meetings in terms of fields were centered around turfs not being usable or something to do with the maintenance of the structure. And that's kind of backed up or may have caused confusion with who got what. I'm not quite sure how that was going on. Perhaps you guys can listen to those tapes. But I read the bill and it just doesn't seem to reflect what was said in terms of making sure home games can be played at home fields. It just doesn't seem to reflect that. So I was wondering if those questions or that data, could be provided about that portal and see where these problems that Mr. Ron just spoke to, where exactly is that information? Thank you.
Mr. Young, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you, Delegate. And I think a lot of these concerns were also brought up when we had the public hearing. And so I guess at this point, if there were any conversation or questions from the members of the subcommittee, we would entertain those.
Okay. Delegate Landis? You're on mute.
Yes, good morning and thank you and welcome to everyone. So Delegate Fayhow and I, we did meet with Ron Young because both of us had similar questions regarding the purpose and the intent for this legislation. It is true that Prince George's County Public Schools does in fact have an administrative procedure that governs the use of use of school facilities. And I do know, now I did retire from Prince George's County Public Schools in 2016, but during my 27-year tenure, I do know that the use of school facilities was not done by the principal per se, that each school had a building supervisor that received the facilities use form and granted approval or disapproval based on the schedule. Now, the concern that I had, I just didn't understand why the legislation was necessary. And at the end of the meeting, by the time we concluded our meeting, I did understand from Mr. Young that there have been some concerns throughout the community regarding availability of use, et cetera, and that the county executive felt like it would be more amenable and to the community at large to have a centralized process that included not only our schools and facilities, but buildings and such, parks and recreation and so on and so forth, to have everything centralized. I understand that. The concern that I did have was whether or not throughout this planning process, if the members of the Board of Education were informed, if there had been any collaboration, any communication with them regarding the legislation and the fact that it would be moved from the school system and managed, centrally by the county executive in her office. And Mr. Young has assured me that there has been or will be, or it's important. The bottom line is this: it's not what you do, but how you do it. And oftentimes in Prince George's County, we get a little bit twisted when there's no collaboration about what's about to happen or what's intended. So I just wanted to share with all of you what my initial concerns were with this legislation. Thank you so much.
And if I understood you, Delegate Landis, after your discussion with Mr. Young, you have the answers to your concerns. Is that
I
correct?
do, yes.
Thank you. Delegate Valentino Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I really want to thank Delegate Landis and Delegate Howe for meeting and getting the extra information and helping the rest of us on the subcommittee to understand the bill a little bit better. So thank you to the two delegates. One question I had and one comment. Do we have a position from the county council on this bill? Do we have a position from the school board? Do we have a position from anybody other than the county executive's office on this bill? And then I'll make my comment. I guess that's for staff.
I'm happy.
Okay, Hallie, if you would.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate. The County Council has not taken a position yet on this, but if and when it does come up on the agenda, you guys certainly will be the first to know.
I mean, last time, Hallie, I know it's not, we asked you at this last meeting last week to please get the position from them. And this bill was posted in December with a hearing for the county council to respond to. And I think this is unfortunately a continued, at least vocalization of frustration on our part when we talk about collaboration and understanding and all working together. For them not to take the time to send us a position is frustrating.
I understand. Thank you, Delegate. I will convey the message. Thank you.
Do we have any other written positions or formal positions on the bill?
Not through my office.
So I guess I feel comfortable, if the county executive thinks that this is something that she needs. I will say from the community, the two concerns that I usually get about allocation and how this will help or not is the prioritization and the protocol, because I usually have groups that ask me about the religious use of the facilities. And when they see that religious hearings or services are being held and trying to explain separation of church and state and tax dollars, because they do see often the use of the facilities. And I don't have a position one way or another. I'm just explaining, where or how this group will be able to respond, who gets to decide whether or not, or what the protocols are for religious services in the facilities. And then I do get a lot of parents that homeschool, that have homeschool organizations that ask often for allocation and access to the resources. So it's just understanding, there was a system now. Is this to redevelop the protocols, the priorities, and the systems for allocation?
Yes, and so Delegate, to that point, it's one, centralizing the services between our school system and park and planning, and then also to have that centralized scheduling system that we don't have the conflicts that we see, and that hopefully, all of our groups and organizations can participate. I mean, this is very similar to what we've seen happen in Montgomery County, how they manage their parks and rec facilities in collaboration with their school system. They did this a couple years ago. We're aligning with that for equity. That way, the people in our community can get the access and really can collaborate. Being to Delegate Landis's point and to, I believe, your earlier point, making sure that all the partners are at the table working together. When we do these things separately, it just hasn't worked as efficiently, especially on the scheduling side as we would want, and that our community rightfully so deserves. And so with that, I mean, we're going to be working.
No, I appreciate that, Ron. And
Yeah.
you've been terrific. You've been terrific. Just terrific, Ron. Thank you. So is Maryland National Park and Planning in support of this, consistent with the county executive?
So we have not, I don't believe we've got an official position from them. And so I guess our position remains the same, is that we believe that this is the best interest of our residents. And so until they make a statement otherwise, we just haven't heard a direct written statement from them.
From Maryland National Park and Planning, but they've been aware of the bill. So certainly if they had reservations, they had a chance to come before us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Landis.
I also want to point out that one of the other concerns that Delegate Howell and I had was what the impact would be on the user fees for our nonprofit organizations and churches and, anyone that wanted to use the facilities. And, I'm just very, very cautious about us moving forward at this moment, only because of the fact that the county council, the Prince George's County Council, they have not yet taken a position of support or non-support for this initiative. And, they are going to be involved in the new process as well as park and planning. And, if you don't get buy-in from everybody around the table, or some indication of, yes, we support this, then if we don't, like I always say, it's not what you do, but how you do it. And if we don't do this thing the right way going out the gate, then it's going to be problematic down the road. And I just really encourage, we just really need to think about this thing. And also to understand that, yes, there have been problems in the past with some organizations not being able to have access to the facilities. And I think it needs to be understood that even if we embrace even if this legislation is approved, that does not mean that there will be incidents where an organization won't get access to a facility under the new arrangement. This is not a cure-all for everything. And so I just don't want us to set ourselves up for failure in that regard as well. Thank you so much.
I feel a need to say that we as a committee need to think about how long we want to wait until county council, other interest groups, park and planning, give us their position. I think last year, I don't know, but it was probably the end of the session, and we're still waiting for a response from the county council. So I think that's something we need to think about very clearly at this point. How long do you want to continue this in hopes of getting a response? I think it's already been said that, county council knew about this bill, as we did in December, and they've had an opportunity to respond. So we need to think about how long we're going to wait for that response. Mrs. Nuke, is your hand up, or did you leave it up from the last time?
I had it back up, Madam Chairman.
You can make a statement, but if you would go make your statement.
Yes, my statement first is that the information and the questions that I submitted to the subcommittee be responded to by whoever is appropriate. Also, the meeting that was referenced to the public, if Mr. Ron Johnson could provide that date or tape, I would like to see it. Thirdly, we've reviewed the conditions under which the space can be rented out for profits and nonprofits. And I think the law currently says unless there's a breach of trust or danger or threat to the public, the facilities can't be, rented or lent out to a group. And so I would ask for some clarification on the problems. And I would say that the public as a whole, because I am a resident, also have not been uniformly informed. And I know the Distinguished Planning Board, the 5 members, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, and the County Council, the centralized process, I would like to know how it's going to be different than the portal that is used, because the questions that I have put forth, I think are important for the public to understand. And those questions have not been answered and have not been explained. And I would just like for that to go on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from delegates? Delegate Landis.
Yes, Madam Chair. In light of the fact that there are so many unanswered questions, I would like to make a motion, if it is appropriate at this time, that that the Education Committee at this time not take a position because there are too many unanswered questions. I did get a text from Ron Young indicating that he would be working expeditiously with the County Council to get a position from them. So I don't think it would be wise of us to move forward at this time and report this out.
Let me ask
I
you,
would second the motion, Madam Chair, because at this point, we do have some time. I mean, obviously, there'll become a time when we have to move the bills from a procedural and timely perspective. But I think one more week, we have the time. But after that, I think we are going to find ourselves in a position to have to move the bills one way or another.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to second the point of us waiting a week, but I do think we should be very clear. A week isn't multiple weeks. We meet next week on Wednesday, and hopefully you have a response by then. Otherwise, I think we need to continue the business of the people in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other hands?
Delegate Proctor, I just want to say that in addition to not knowing the position of the County Council, we really don't know the position of Park and Planning.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Davis, you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to have a few inputs. And I've been hearing the comments from Mr. Geraldine and other who are talking about a specific bill and the utilization of these spaces that need to be moved on. However, I come to this meeting or have been invited to this space. Truth and trust is what I'm dealing with. And I'm finding that there's no truth, there's no trust, and there's no accountability for all of you all who have been voted in by the public tax-paying citizens. Look to do some action. And I think that you took an oath to be more accountable to the needs of the constituents. However, that has not taken place. So the question that is sitting before us is specifically why we continue to violate or neglect the civil rights of humanity in Prince George County without them having to say a word about how you set this scheme up to continue to deny them. So now the office that I'm concerned about and the utilization of one of these particular spaces that can be mandated through the county executive is an office of reentry or the office of returning citizens. I'd like that office to be talked about because there's not any conversation around how we have intentionally neglected individuals who are coming back to the community and needing the support to matriculate back into the community for safety, for public health, we're not allowing these individuals to have a seat at the table to even discuss how they've been made to feel. That impacts their families. So I'm specifically concerned about that, Ms. Delegate. And I don't think that we should allow the continuation of setting things off. Now we have an agency like the fire department. They can't set things off because they're responding to the needs.
Mr. Davis, I need you to summarize.
Well, I need specific time with some individual, maybe Miss Valentino or someone other individual who we can talk about legitimate concerns impacting the reentry community. Can you do that?
I think that,
I don't
I
want to
think
talk.
it,
I don't want to talk to the council. I need to talk to one of these delegates who have the heart to do these things.
Mr. Davis, I think I can safely say that any delegate on this, at this meeting, call their office, and they'll set up an appointment for you. I know, I can speak for myself. Call my office and we'll set up an appointment to talk about your concerns. Thank you very much. We do have a representative from Park and Planning. Is your hand up?
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry, I wanted to speak up earlier, but I was having issues with my my mute button. So I just wanted to say that Park and Planning has not taken a position, and I will relay the message that the delegation committee is looking for a position from Park and Planning.
Let me ask you something.
Okay.
May I ask her a question? May I ask her a question?
Are you asking me, Mr. Davis?
No, the Miss Clean. Miss Colleen.
Well, we can't ask the questions in this form, but you call the office and we'll set up something for you.
Well,
Okay. At this time, we are going to bring the meeting to an end. We will have a meeting next Wednesday, and I think I'm hearing a consensus that this group will be ready to make a decision next week based on whatever reports that we have received. Delegate Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, if we can, right before we wrap up, I wanted to explain something to Mr. Davis so that he doesn't leave the meeting with the wrong impression. In this format, guests are allowed to ask questions of us, but they can't ask each other. That's what the chair was referencing. So if you want to ask a question, particularly to Park and Planning, you'll have to reach out to Park and Planning or reach out to our office so that we can set up an offline meeting among us. I didn't want you leaving thinking that we were saying that this isn't a space for you to participate. Just the protocol is that you can ask questions of us, but the guests themselves can't ask of each other. That would have to be an offline conversation among you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Could I get a motion to? Do we have is your hand up, Delegate Landis, or is it?
Delegate Valentino Smith had her hand up first.
Okay, Delegate Valentino Smith.
Thank you, Delegate Landis. We can take turns. So one, Mr. Davis, thank you. Please just get in touch with us because of the format that we have. But can we have Mr. Young work with whatever Ms. Nuruddin has indicated to us twice that there's been some expression of questions presented at some forum that haven't been answered. And so if we can just get a better understanding of where the questions have been sent, when they were sent, and if they'll at least be responded to, that would, it's just, I think that's just a process thing, is we want to make sure those are things we can't answer, but that she gets answered or that they get answered in time. And it may be happening or it may not be, but given the discussion this morning, if we could just make sure that that takes place. Thank you.
Ms. Delegate Landis.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to make certain, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but before we adjourn, a motion has been properly moved and seconded, and we did not vote on it as a committee. So I just wanted to point that out.
Oh. Okay, it has been properly moved and second that this House Bill 50322 will be moved to discussion at our next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any noes? Any discussion? Well, we will move on, and we have the recording. So I will make sure that we have a copy of Mrs. Sheridan's questions. And we'll try to forward them to the appropriate person so that by the next meeting, she will have a response to her concerns. Delegate Landis.
Yes, before we go, I just want to also make a request that the members of the Board of Education be informed of this new legislation that may or may not pass. They need to be informed, as well as the administration, to the extent that would be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll see everybody on the floor. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll meet next Wednesday. Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody. Be safe.
Be safe.
Mhm.